I'm Stacy Stewart. I'm the counselor here at Fielder Elementary, and we have with us Miss
Hi.
Counterman, the library.
Sorry, I had it down to just active speaker view. So yes, hello.
Anyway, so today we wanted to meet with everybody today and talk about mindfulness. It's kind of a buzzword here in education, and actually, I think everywhere, really, I think everybody's sort of using this word mindfulness. And I kind of wanted to talk about it because I think a lot of people just think of it as yoga and green tea and really relaxing music. So I wanted to tell you how we use it with your children here at school and then ways that you can use it at home. Okay. So mindfulness, actually the definition is the intentional use of attention. And that's really what when I talk about it with kids and students, that's what I talk about, intention, and what their intention is while they're here at school or at home, or what their actions are or reactions are, what their intention is. So we talk about that quite a bit when they come to my room. And so I talk about mindfulness being a lot of things, like thinking about your breathing. A lot of people could even think about the way that they drink. So if you want to drink hot water and lemon with cayenne, but it's really not just the fact that you're drinking something, but you're really tasting it. If you're really, really hot and you want to taste something cold to cool you off, that sort of thing. So really being mindful about what you drink. And then here's the one that I'm super guilty of and that I have to work on a lot is being mindful of doing one thing at a time. So when you're eating, just eat. When you're checking email, just check your emails. When you're reading, just, read. But a lot of times, and especially moms, we're not doing that. We're doing a whole bunch of other things. We're probably doing at least those two things right there, and probably a lot more if kids are around. And so mindfulness can also be just noticing your senses, your taste, your touch, your smell. And I talk about this a lot with the kids. And then deep listening, really being an active listener, meaning that you are listening and listening with some attention to hear what people have to say and not just waiting for us to respond. And even as a counselor, a lot of times that takes a lot of practice and intention and mindfulness. And then mindful walking. Feel your feet connecting to the ground. And a lot, if any of you are taking, have a practice with yoga, that's a lot of times they talk about connecting with the earth and the ground with your feet. And then body scan. Every once in a while, people can have time to just scan their body, how they're feeling. And a lot of times I do this while I'm driving, because all of a sudden I realize that my shoulders are way up here and I've got this, grip on the steering wheel, like today when I'm driving in the rain on the way in. And, gosh, why do I feel so bad when I get to work? Well, it's because I've been, stressed out the whole time. So I really try to take a body scan, especially when I'm driving. That's because we tend to hold a lot of stress. And if we're in tune, if we take a minute, then we can let go of some of that. Okay, mindful attitudes. And this is kind of where the yoga Zen stuff kind of comes in when we talk about mindfulness, because it's being non-judgmental and patient, having a beginner's mind. And I have to talk about this a lot of times with students who are a little bit older, the 4th and 5th grade students that get really frustrated in math or trying to learn something new. I have to remind them that you're a beginner still. But even adults can have that attitude that everything is kind of a big, everything that you're doing. If you're doing it for the very first time, don't expect to do it well. Trust. Non-striving, and this is hard because I'm kind of a competitive person, and a lot of people are. So sometimes just doing something, and having acceptance, and not necessarily wanting to win. And then letting go of the grudges and some generosity. And then benefits of mindfulness: it slows you down and it helps you know yourself a little bit better. and it helps you focus or concentrate, which is what I really try to get with students when I'm talking with them about it. And when I talk with parents, I talk a lot about stressing less. And then it can help you change bad habits. You have to be very mindful. If you know that you've got a bad habit, I know that my boyfriend really talks about he's hard on himself because he does judge things quickly, like, and usually it's in a negative way. And so he's really trying to change that habit. He's got to be mindful of when he sees something new to think before he reacts and speaks. So mindfulness can help you with those bad habits. It also can make you more resilient and lead to self-acceptance and compassion for others. And then really, if you've got all of these things, resiliency, self-acceptance, compassion for others, and less stress, of course, your life is going to be more enjoyable. So let's talk about mindfulness at school. This is what I talk about when I see students at school. I teach them self-compassion because a lot of kids, and parents will email me a lot of times, my kid says that he's not good at anything and that he hates himself, and some kids will even hit themselves. So we really talk about self-compassion, how you can like yourself. We talk about positive self-talk a lot in this room. And improving your alertness. And this is when I start, and you'll see some of the things that I use to improve their alertness. Help understanding thoughts and feelings. And we talk about feelings a ton. This is a counselor's room, so this is time to talk about it. Naming them, accepting them. We talk about feelings a lot. And then balancing their energy. A lot of times, kids come to school and sometimes they forget to eat or don't eat or can't, what is their energy level going to be like? And then if they're not motivated or they don't have any sort of self-compassion, what kind of energy level are they going to bring to studying things or learning something new? So we talk about that a lot. Building communication and relationships. I have a lot of friendship groups, and we talk about being mindful and being compassionate with one another. And I also like to teach them about reducing stress and how to help their anxiety. And of course, right now, anxiety is high. And in fact, I think I would say 90% of my parent conversations are, my kid has some anxiety. And that could have been even before COVID, but since COVID, it's just been exacerbated and tends to come up a lot more often. And so mindfulness can also encourage creativity and create healthy self-esteem. So this is one of the first activities that we talk about with students, or I talk about it anyway, things that are out of my control and things that I can control. And this is just one way, especially those kids who are really anxious, because they get anxious. It's amazing what they're anxious about, whether or not their parents are going to fight with each other, whether or not their parents are going to be mad, whether their sister's going to, steal their favorite toy when they get home. It's amazing. If you've got a worry in your family, you know that they worry about a lot of other things. And so, in fact, my oldest daughter didn't come see me for Thanksgiving because she was very worried about COVID and getting together, and we were going to have a few more people at our house that she didn't know. And so I told her, I said, you can't control what other people are doing. You're right. And so what you can control is your actions. And so if you think it's safer for you to stay at home because you don't know what these other people are doing and where they're going, then do that. And that upset her for a little while, but I was like, but you can't control that. Only you can control. And it made it a little bit easier for her to make decisions. But things that kids can control are their words, their actions, their ideas, the way they play, their effort they put into their work, and the mistakes that they make and their behavior. But they can't control anything else. They can't control what other people are doing or their other ideas or what other people think about them. So that's probably one of the first things I talk about when they come into my room with a lot of anxiety. And then the way to relieve a lot of that anxiety is, I call it grounding. So we talk about using your 5 senses. And this really talks about taking things out of that reptilian brain with all the feelings and all the emotions. And we talk about putting it in the thinking brain. And so I make the kids think about the things that they can see. And I make them think about what they can feel or touch. and I make them think about what they can hear and smell and taste. And then all of those emotions they can't bubble up because the thinking mind is on. And so that way they can bring their feelings down and their focus becomes more in tune, and they're able to relax a little bit, and then we can have some conversations about things. I probably send this home once or twice a week to some families so they can use this at home. I use it myself all the time. And then gratitude. Everyone knows that if you've got a feeling of gratitude, that you're a happier person. People who are unhappy have these really high expectations, and then things don't always meet those expectations. But if you're happy with, if you're grateful for what you have, your happiness level, and your expectation level kind of even out. And so we talk about the things that you're grateful for. Yep, you didn't do well on a test, but you're grateful because you made an effort, you studied, you learned how to do something else. So when you take the test the next time, you'll do better. But it's easy, to get away from that. And so I've been sending this home too. Let's just be grateful for the books that we can read and the sunrises and memories. Kids always say their families. Always, always, always say their families. I'm amazed. Kids never forget about their families. They talk about their brothers and sisters and their mom and dad and their grandparents all the time. And that always does me good. So they're very grateful for their families. So they do realize that they have things to be grateful for. And then I put in a few videos. Let's see, how much time do we have? Yeah, I have a couple of videos about breathing. This is mindful breathing, and I have one. Oh, well, we're going to go ahead and listen to it for just a second. It's really loud on my end. I just tell the kids to breathe in and breathe out, and this gives them a good visual to help them. And I just found it on YouTube. So there's a lot of things on YouTube for breathing. This one is just the breathing in and out. I have square breathing, but there's all kinds of shapes. There's 8, there's crazy 8 on where you breathe in the shape of an 8. Stars. So if you could use your hands, if you're out somewhere, breathe in, breathe out. And then this is how square breathing works too.
Daisy, can you go ahead and do another screen share, because I don't think you shared your sound. So if you go to your screen sharing, just you don't even have to get out, just say start new share or start new
new share,
and then click
I got it.
Computer sound.
Perfect, thank you. All right. Okay, this will be better.
Follow the picture on your screen and breathe in as the arrow moves up one side of the square. Hold your breath at the top. Breathe out as the arrow moves down the other side, and hold your breath again at the bottom.
And then we practice this. So we breathe in.
Okay, starting on one side of the square. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out all the way, 3, 4, and hold your breath, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in.
And so we practice breathing. I also, for the littles, I have a Sesame Street video. I didn't include it here, but belly breathe for the little kiddos to talk about belly breathing. And we just talk about self-regulation, when they get angry, when they get stressed, that sort of thing. And a lot of kids will deny it. They're like, this doesn't help me. But as we go through it, they'll be able to calm down And then they'll be able to talk about what's bothering them or why they're mad or why they're in my room or whatever it is. But even on days when kids come and they seem calm and we're just going to talk about some other things, like maybe some anxiety or how their tests are going or whatever, I'll start with a breathing exercise and they'll say, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And we just don't realize how much we're holding our breaths a good bit of the day. And we're breathing very, very shallowly. So it's just a good, if you've got time, it's a good thing to, start some breathing exercises. And if your kid's upset at home, use these. If you want to practice, there's all kinds of things on YouTube. They're everywhere. They are everywhere.
Square.
Let's see. Mind Yeti is one of my very favorite things. Oh my gosh, because he is adorable. And he has one for breathing as well. It's super. I think this one is.
Hello. Welcome to Mind Yeti. You're about to tap into the power of something that is with you all day, every day, but you probably hardly notice. It's your breath. Before we begin, take a moment to sit comfortably with your back straight and your feet or legs resting on the floor. Feel how the floor or your chair supports you as you sit. We call this your Yeti body. Now notice your breath.
And then they go on to talk about their breath. And then Mind Yeti is the same thing. What is mindfulness? And it kind of tells the kids what it is. And so when I'm explaining it to them, especially the little guys, they do a pretty good job. It's super short.
What is mindfulness anyway? When you're doing Mind Yeti, you're practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness is paying attention to things as they are right now. Things like your breath, body, or the sounds around you, with kindness and curiosity. It's also noticing thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they're happening. Mindfulness is also being kind to others and yourself, even when you're having a hard day. According to scientists who study the brain, practicing mindfulness can help you get better at calming down.
And so I do a few lessons with that. I actually started using it a lot during COVID. We put it on some of our lessons back when everybody was virtual, that sort of thing. But Mind Yeti is, I really like it. In fact, my PTA last year bought it for us, and we were able to use the whole series. And there's a lot of different ways to use it. So I really enjoy Mind Yeti. And the kids like it too. It's cute. Okay, I wanted to, am I here already? Yes. I want to talk about some children's books about mindfulness, things that you might see in my room and that your kids might talk about. I have the book, I Am Human and I Am Peace. They are both by Peter Reynolds. I think we have a Peter Reynolds book every time that we've had a webinar because he's so awesome. And really can tune into kids and talk about empathy and mindfulness and kindness and gratitude. And so he's really, really good at these really short stories and being able to express this one idea very quickly. Also, the book Be Kind is about being kind, exactly what we're talking about in Mind Yeti, how being kind to somebody else can help you as well. And then the fantastic elastic brain, Stretch It, Shape It. So just another way for kids to look at being mindful, being intentional that, yes, they might not know how to do something right now, but if they practice and they are really good to themselves, then eventually their brain's going to grow and become better. And last time we talked a little bit about growth mindset, and so this kind of plays into that too. That nothing is static, that you can always change it with just, a different habit or looking at something with a different perspective. And here are just a few other books. I chose this one, Nobody's Perfect, a story about childhood, about perfectionism, because a lot of kids who are stressed out and have some anxiety, they tend to be those perfectionist kiddos. And if you have one, you know what I'm talking about. Their work's never good enough. They stay up all night trying to do, a paper that probably should have taken 20 minutes at tops, and here they are at 10 o'clock and they're crying. And so perfectionism is, built with a lot of anxiety and fear and that sort of thing. And so this is one of those stories. It's also a little bit older for the older kids. And I love The Important Book because, oh my gosh, and it's so old. I've had it for forever. I think I got it my first year of teaching, actually. And it's by the same author that wrote Goodnight Moon, but it's how things are important. I mean, like one of them's the spoon. Why is it important? And so again, being grateful for the things that we have, even though they're very, very simple, they're things that make life better, and we should be grateful for them. And then A Little Spot of Patience is just a story about how to enjoy waiting. And kids are not very good at waiting. And it started in my generation as soon as we got, things that we could do that were handheld, like those little football games. I can't even remember what they're called now. But, we didn't have to wait just, looking around. We had something in our hands that could help us pass the time. But you know what? Sometimes waiting and not doing anything and maybe even being a little bored is a good thing. So that's what that book talks about. And just some of the things that kids can learn through mindfulness: being open-minded, spending time with nature, exercising, and learning something new, relaxing, having positive thoughts, and then forgiving those. And that a lot of times kids come in and talk about how they're so mad at the other kids for doing something, even though they might be in third grade, they remember somebody doing something to them in first grade. So we talk about forgiveness when we talk about mindfulness too. Okay, home. What does mindfulness, or what can it look like at home? I love this because, again, it's not just about yoga and deep breathing and grounding, but it's being present. It's being mindful. So when you're a mindful parent, what is happening with my child right now in this moment? And a lot of times, oh my gosh, I'll never forget, as when my kids were little, I couldn't wait for the day where I didn't say hurry up. Because I always felt like we were going somewhere else. And I know I didn't live in the moment a good bit of the time when my kids were younger. I was always going somewhere else or needed to do something else. But it's good to have a moment every once in a while to just, look at what your kid's doing. Like when he's doing his homework, it's just not the act of doing homework, but I mean, really thinking about, oh my gosh, how much have they learned this year from the beginning of the year, and look at what they can do. It's really fun when they start playing instruments and that sort of thing once they get into junior high, because then you can really see that their work pays off. And what does my child feel? And then because of those feelings, what does he need? And then what am I feeling? And so what do I need? And that's the other thing I really want to tell parents, is that being self-aware and taking a moment for yourself is actually good for you and your family. Intentional parenting, 10 tips. And I'm sure that you all do this. I know that you all do, but I just wanted to put them out there just to remind ourselves that using positive affirmations, some people are so good at that. I actually have another, I didn't put it on here, but using positive affirmations, but when you're being intentional, those affirmations need to be really specific and not just "you're awesome" or "you are great." Being really intentional and telling them something specific. That's what helps kids grow. Being present, turning off the phone, turning off the TV, having dinners together, that sort of thing. Don't let your perception become their reality. So even though, it's so apparent even right now during the election and during COVID and all this, our kids take on so much of our feelings and our thoughts and our perceptions. And so sometimes we have to be really mindful of what we're saying in front of our kids and what we're watching in front of our kids, because I really do take it to heart. And it looks like maybe they're not listening or hearing or even taking it in, but they do. And so even if they can't verbalize that, they might still feel it inside. Teaching them grit, letting them fail, responding and not reacting to things. So, and oh my gosh, as a parent of young kids, I was really guilty of that. Instead of, I reacted quite a bit. Instilling gratitude, we've talked a lot about that today. Exposing them to new things, and showing them your fears, and not just showing them your fears, but what you do to overcome that. Because yes, we can all be fearful, but you don't want them to necessarily thrive on your own fears. Tell them what you do. Here's how I sometimes I feel mad too, or I'm fearful of this too, but here's what I can do. And then tell them what you do. Replace can't with not yet. That's the elastic brain and the growth mindset we talked about. And then show them love, which I know everybody's doing. This is a parent's what you can control and what you cannot control. And I love this. Obviously, this was made recently during COVID, the amount of toilet paper at the store, which I hear is a thing again. I went to Target the other day and it was gone, but at HEB it was there. So I don't know, toilet paper's here and there. How long will this pandemic last? We don't know. How are others going to react? We don't know, but here's what we can control. Our positive attitudes, turning off the news, which I do quite a bit, finding fun things to do at home. You know what, and it was so back in spring, we were just talking about that in spring break when we first, when this first happened, we were so much better about finding things to do at home, playing games that we hadn't played, doing the gratitude rocks and spreading them around the neighborhood and writing on the sidewalks. As the time has gone by, things have not been as fun. and I'm starting to notice that a lot in my neighborhood. I don't see anybody writing on the sidewalk anymore. That's kind of sad. But limiting your social media and giving grace and kindness to others. So I just think I just wanted parents to know too that sometimes we get so upset, but we have to realize there are just some things we can't control. And then I wanted to send these prompts home for you, the gratitude prompts, something that either you can, the kids know about, and you can just lay them out there and talk about them, or maybe this is something that you bring up, maybe these are just for you and you just slip them into conversations or dinner or while you're in the car or something like that. But I love these prompts, like, if you were just going to ask them, what's a memory that you're grateful for? And, kids come up with the craziest things. My kids, and they're in their 20s now, but they remember stuff that I'm like, I have no idea where that came from. I don't remember that day, that time, that moment, but they not only do they remember it, they loved it. And so it's kind of fun to listen to what kids are grateful for. It's a fun activity. And, like I said, if they're grateful for the little bitty things, then they're infinitely, their happiness becomes, more profound. And then self-care and mental health for kids. So this is for parents talking about your kids. You can tell I'm a really visual person. I love this little thing. It's sharing your feelings to encourage self-awareness. So just like what we talked about, sharing your feelings, but also showing them, you can be aware of them, but you need to do something about those feelings. And focusing on feelings, naming them, because sometimes kids just are crying and we just immediately think they're sad, but even being sad or angry, sometimes that comes from other things: fear, anxiety, disappointment, something else. And so giving them a good way to name those feelings. Set a time for low stress activities, just to be by themselves. I remember as a kid being in my room by myself a lot, and I know that doesn't happen as often anymore, but yeah, I used to make up dances and draw pictures and, write stories and all kinds of stuff. And I don't think my kids had as much solo activities as I did. And so I don't know if kids are having solo activity time, but it's good for them. but it's also good for them to have social groups. And I'm a belonger, I'm a joiner, I'm a counselor at heart. And so, you know, make sure that they do have some groups that they feel like that they can belong, whether it's their scout group or soccer, or even just, you know, the kids in the neighborhood. Encouraging journaling and their diaries. I actually give journals and diaries almost every Christmas. And so I think I'm making sure I'm going to be intentional and mindful that everyone gets one of those in my family this year. I think it's important. Practice self-care for yourself. Set the standard, because if you're setting a standard for self-care for your family, then your family will follow suit. So establish a self-care routine. You know, put your device down an hour before bedtime. Set aside some time for just quiet. Set aside some time to be out in nature. Cultivate something new, a new interest or hobby. Read, you know, whatever it is. But if you're the mom is usually the one who establishes that. So take time to do that, and encourage your kids to focus on the moment. If you are walking around and you see something really neat at the park, you know, express that. Oh my gosh, you're like, that's new. We haven't seen that before. You know, make sure that they're enjoying that moment for a while. And then this is just a way to mindfully deal with difficult emotions. And we've talked about this a lot, accepting that emotion, identifying it, and then realize that it's not forever, that this emotion is going to go away. Inquire things, you know, why did this happen to me? And then let it go. That mindfulness is all about being able to accept it and then let it go. And then I found some books about parenting and mindfulness. I'm gonna, some of these we've seen before, or at least the authors that we've seen before, or I've talked about them before, but I went ahead and I included them anyway. But I wanted to talk about this, this Danish way of parenting. I'm just gonna tell you right now, I've not read it. I've only read the reviews. And it is, you know, the happiest people in the world, they say, are the people, the Danes, the Danish. And so somebody set out to find out why, if the people were so happy, then wouldn't their children be so happy? And so they wrote a book about it. And I haven't read it, but it sounds interesting. Like, yeah, if these are going to be the happiest people in the world, would their children tend to be the happiest people? And how do they do that? How do they cultivate that? So I thought that was, you know, maybe one of you can read it and tell me everything, but it sounded interesting. The 5 love languages, I think we talked about that last time, because there's the 5 love languages of children, being attuned to your child's love language, and how to accept that. And then we talked about the Whole Brain Child last time, and the same authors of the Whole Brain Child has written The Power of Showing Up, The Yes Brain, and The No Drama Discipline. So the same people that wrote those books, who wrote The Whole Brain Child, also wrote these books. They also, I think all 3 of these come with workbooks as well. So The Whole Brain Way to Calm the Chaos and Nurture Your Child's Developing Mind, The Yes Brain, How to Cultivate Courage, Curiosity, and Resilience, and The Power of Showing Up, How parental pressure shapes our kids let me read that again. How parental presence shapes who our kids become and how their brains get wired. So that's all I have for today, which, oh my gosh, I talked forever, 40 minutes. I haven't done that in a long time, probably since I was a teacher. So that's been a couple of years. Whoosh. All right. I'm sure y'all are tired of hearing about it from me. So
you have a lot of really good information. All right. If you could stop your share so then I can start mine. I just have a few things to share. Just a few books for students, because oh, that's not it. That's just our webinar. There we go. This is the exact same. No, I hit the wrong thing. Sorry, guys. All right, so I just wanted to share some books that promote empathy. And when I say empathy, the reason why I'm talking about it is because it goes so well with mindfulness and being aware of yourself, your others, and surroundings. And a lot of times, especially children, they emulate what they see. And so that's where books come into play. These right here, these first few are picture books, and you might be familiar with some of them. All the books I'm talking about, I've read, I've used in lessons, I've recommended to others, and they're all amazing. The first one, Last Stop on Market Street, that actually won, you can see on there, it has a lot of awards. It was a picture book that won the Newbery Award, which doesn't happen very often because it's the best written book in the United States for that year. And that book is all about CJ and his grandma. Every single Sunday after church, they ride a bus across town, and he is kind of upset because he wants a car like his friends, and he doesn't understand why he can't have an iPod. You know, I know people don't really have iPods anymore. It's more like phones, but why can't he have one like the person on the bus? And it shows all these different types of people on this bus, and it doesn't tell you where they're going. You just assume, okay, maybe they're just going home and they need to take the bus to go home. And you just get introduced to all these characters, and you see kind of a glimpse into other people's lives. And at the end, you find out that they're going to volunteer at a food shelter, or at a soup kitchen. And so CJ kind of realizes, all right, well, we're doing all this. Not everybody has the same things we do, and we are giving of ourselves. And so it kind of brings that into the picture. Those shoes, that book in the middle, that is when the boy in the bottom right, he sees everybody wearing these shoes, those black shoes with the white stripes, and he doesn't have them, and everybody else does. And then his shoes break, and the only shoes they have at school to give him that time are these bright neon blue shoes with Velcro, and he's really embarrassed, and people are making fun of him. And while the character himself doesn't necessarily go on a huge journey about empathy, the other characters do about him. And he is really mad. He finds the shoes that everyone's wearing in the thrift shop, and he buys them, but they're way too small, but he is convinced he has to wear them. He has to. But then he sees one other kid at school whose shoes broke also, and it was the one kid that wasn't laughing at him, so he ends up giving them away. So that's pretty powerful there. Enemy Pie is a really adorable book, and it's this boy that's really, really angry at, he calls him his enemy, and his dad says, oh, I have the best recipe for enemy pie. It's something that you make when, you just hate somebody. And the little boy thinks that it's like full of poison and worms and or something. He has no idea, but they make it, and he realizes, oh, this is like regular pie. And his dad said, oh, no, it's enemy pie. But first he has to spend a day with the enemy for it to work. And so he spends a day, and they kind of learn about each other, and they become friends at the end. So it really kind of worked out, because at the end they ate their enemy pie, which turned into friendship. Bear Feels Sick is just really cute. Again, you've probably, especially if you have young children right now, are familiar with the bear books. This is just a good one to promote empathy and kindness, because he's sick and all his friends are coming to help him. They don't have to, but they are. And it's just kind of a nice friendship story there. Strictly No Elephants. It's about this little boy who has a little tiny pet elephant, which is silly, I know, but we're just going to go with it, because in this world you can have a tiny pet elephant and put a scarf on it. And he wants to join this club, a pet club, but everyone has like cats and dogs and what we consider normal pets, and they won't let him join. So then he just starts his own club that anybody can come join. It's all inclusive, and then people show up with all their bizarre pets. It's just kind of an allegory to, acceptance and understanding. Julius, Baby of the World. This is a great book to use for siblings, especially if you have brand new siblings, because this baby's born and then Lily, that's the little mouse there, starts resenting all the attention that he's getting, but then she kind of comes to terms and realizes that, you know, she loves him. This author, Catherine Otoshi, she writes a lot of books. They start with 0, 1, 2, but they're all kind of social emotional books. And this particular one is all about blue is very, very quiet. And then red is colors. Red is really hot-headed color and kind of picks on blue, and everyone sees it, but then no one does anything about it until one day comes, let's see. Oh, one. The number one. So I'm sorry. It's all about colors, and then numbers come into the number one comes in. Yeah, sorry. I sometimes get 0, 1, and 2 mixed up. And then like shows everyone that they are all, you know, they have things in common. So those are picture books. Then I have here some really good middle grade chapter books. Middle grade in the publishing world is referred to like books that are good for grades 4 through 8. That doesn't mean other kids can't read them. It just means that their reading level, the maturity level is kind of, you know, starts in 4th grade. And like any book that I talk about, obviously, you know, you are ultimately in charge of your child. So if there's a subject you don't want them reading about, that's up to you. You can talk to them about that. But I wanted to present these 6 books because they are some of my absolute favorites for promoting empathy. And the reason why I choose them is because they give you a glimpse into other people's lives that might not be like yours. Because that's the best way to have empathy and be mindful of those around you, to kind of understand a little more and read about a situation that you maybe have never encountered. So the first one, Front Desk, is about a girl whose family immigrates from China, and it takes place in the 90s when the Chinese government was going through an overhaul. It was changing, and it didn't matter if you had a lot of money and a college degree back in China. It didn't matter when you got to the United States if you couldn't bring the money with you, and they wouldn't recognize your degree. So her family ends up working in a motel, and you kind of hear stories from other immigrants. This is fiction, but it's based loosely on her own life, the author, and you learn about what it was kind of like in the 90s being a Chinese immigrant. That is the very specific topic in it, but it kind of reaches out also into just immigration in general, where if you come from a country where you don't speak the language and your degrees are not recognized. And then we have Hello Universe in the top middle. That one is about 4 people whose lives kind of come together. There's a bully character that throws another boy's backpack down a well, but he didn't know that there was a hamster in it. And the boy goes down the well to get his hamster, but then he can't come back out. He can't get out, and people are looking for him. And 2 other people start looking for him as well. One is hearing impaired as well. And then you kind of also see a glimpse into the bully's life. And while we're not excusing being a bully, you kind of see him where he gets it from, because his father is terrible. Then we have New Kid, which is one of my all-time favorite books. It is the very first, it's a comic, it's a graphic novel, very first one to win the Newbery Award. Again, the best children's book in America for the year. It is about Jordan Banks right here, and he is new. Obviously, it's called New Kid. He gets into a very prestigious private school on a scholarship, and he learns really fast that he's one of the few people of color at his school. And it's all about fitting in and what it means to be someone that's in the minority at a school. And he kind of gets torn because he really likes his friends at the new school and his friends back home, and they don't always mesh. So again, this really appeals to anyone who's ever felt out of place. Wish Tree down in the bottom left is about a new family that moves in to this little town, and they're a Muslim family, and you don't really know that much about the people. The whole book is written from the tree's point of view, and the tree is talking to these animals, and someone carves a hateful message into the tree, and then the tree kind of breaks the code and talks. So she talks to the family, or the little girl, and then her neighbor. And I mean, it's very poignant, very it's a gentle story, but it's really meaningful about, you know, perception versus reality and coming together as a community. Then The Best Man has a lot of very strong male role models, because Archer looks up to his dad, and he looks up to his uncle, and he looks up to his grandpa. And then he gets a brand new teacher in 5th grade that is the very first male teacher they've ever had, which is pretty exciting. And he's a war veteran. But then at one point there is a gay bullying incident, and in this really powerful moment, that character speaks up and said, you know, he kind of outs himself as being gay. And that's not the main part of the story, but it's in there in a way that's just like, okay, you can't bully people just based on that. And then he ends up being the best man at the wedding. And then Wonder is, I'm sure you've heard of it. Everyone's heard of Wonder. But if you haven't, it's a wonderful book. See what I did there? It's a movie now. I know, I'm so funny. Just kidding. That was an eye roll joke. So Wonder is about Augie, who is very disfigured. There's nothing wrong with his mind, but he looks very disfigured, and people just don't understand him, and they judge him based on his appearance. So again, a lot of empathy there. And I could talk on and on and on and on about all the different books, but again, these are my top 6 picks for middle grade in terms of kind of learning about backgrounds that might not be yours, cultures that might not be yours, or just, you know, being kind and being mindful of other people. So that's all for me.
Yes.
All right. Thank
Questions,
you,
anybody?
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh. Okay, thank you. All right, we